You are welcome along. This is kind of like a one-stop shop effort for the weekend's GAA. A lot of games in both coasts, Irish independent reporters at all the grounds. So we'll lean into the bigger stories. Later on, Michael Verney will join us. He was at Walsh Park. Conor McKeon is here in studio. He was at Portlaoise. Conor, welcome.
Hi, Joe.
And Donnchadh Boyle, here in studio, was in Portlaoise for Meath, 23 points, Dublin 116. You're very welcome.
Thank you, Joe.
Lots going on. As ever, our GAA coverage on the Indo Sport podcast is with thanks to AIB. AIB at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county. And in 2025, they are celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. They are more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. You can check out #TheToughest for more. And, well, I guess it's now a more open championship than ever. We have, obviously, Meath Dublin. We had Kildare 18 points, Louth 118 in Tullamore in the other game. We had Armagh, who are now just clutch. They're just clutch. From nearly men to clutch. They beat Tyrone 23 points to 22. Donegal, not super impressive, and still run out 6 points winners against Down in Clonus. There was, by the way, a moment. We're not starting with Kildare. Don't get me wrong, but there was a moment in Kildare 18 points 118 where the hooter shoots and rugby style a Louth player grabs the ball and you can just hear his team just boot it anywhere, and he boots it over his own end line. And I'm with him. I say, this is not me hanging this guy out to dry. I was like, well, that's that done.
Craig Lennon, I think, yeah.
Craig Lennon. Craig, I'm not having a go at you. I was thinking the same thing. And to Craig's horror, the referee says, oh no, that's a 45, Craig.
Yeah. Ball still in play.
Yeah, it has to go out over the sideline. It just shows none of us learn the rules by reading the rules. We learn by watching and playing, and you figure it out that way. This was complete news to me.
I was in Clonus last week. And there was a similar scenario. Monaghan Donegal, ball kicked out. Sean Patton kicks the ball out. Monaghan win the line ball. And as the ball is out of play, Monaghan sort of take a few seconds to get it out. They delay a little bit. And because the ball isn't back in play when the hooter goes, the game is deemed to be officially over. So it was a similar scenario. Now, Jim McGeeney's admitted afterwards he was scratching his head. The Monaghan players in the field were not happy. Gabriel Bannigan was protesting with the fourth official. And David Coldrick, to his eternal credit, and it wasn't said enough, he was the only man in the ground who knew exactly what should happen.
Well, they are the exception to the rule that nobody reads the rules.
Yes, exactly. But he knew, and he had no doubt, and he stood his ground, and he was absolutely 100% fundamentally spot on. And Brendan Griffin in this game, in fairness to him, that little nuance, the fact that it was a 45 and not a line ball, which is the small little thing that makes all the difference. And just imagine a world where Kildare get a goal after 45.
This is the thing. I mean, we did say at the start of the year, the one downside of these rules coming in so quickly is that, what if in a big game, a big thing is decided? This is Tailteann Cup or Sam Maguire. This is a real shot at a Leinster championship for the first time anyway outside of Dublin in 15 years. And there's Craig going, everyone said boot the ball. I did exactly what everyone said.
Well, I was just, when we're on that, maybe it's worth going on to it now. I had an epiphany or a moment of horror when Meath had won that last free. The hooter had gone. Meath were 3 points up. In my mind, I imagined a scenario where Owen Frayne would take the free kick,
drop it short,
hit the post,
bounce
back into, I don't know, Theo Clancy.
The lads with the flares.
The flare was already going at this stage.
That would be
Dublin
delicious
go
if that happened.
the length of the field, stick it in the net. That thought entered my head.
But that's a great point. So actually, the advice, instead of celebrating, and they're entitled to it, but actually
eat the ball.
The percentage
Jim Gavin would have told his player, put that out over the sideline. Don't put it out for a 45-hour end. Put it out over the sideline. That's really interesting.
Because I had
point.
been in Clonus the week before, I was highly aware of it, and I was sort of, at this stage, some of my journalistic impartiality may have slipped.
Sure.
And I was imploring Owen,
don't go for it,
in colourful language, to hit the terrace.
It'd be a strange moment if he turned to the sideline and booted it over.
Oh, I think it would probably be one of the most talked about GAA moments of the year.
Even Jim Gavin at home be like, I didn't really want this.
Yeah, this is not the North Star.
On the phone to Horan, James, we need another caveat.
Yeah,
we're going to have to do about another 11 meetings to figure out how we're going to get this one out.
That is a tricky one. All's well that ends well for both Craig Lennon and for Meath. So 23 points to 116. If people didn't see the game, this was kind of we became familiar with this dynamic during the league. Meath had the win in the first half. They declared with the 12-point lead, and it was, could Dublin fight back? But we had learned our lessons from the league, so even at half time, everyone knew the game was still on. Good riddance, Croke Park for semi-finals as a headline. That worked.
It did. It was only the attendance was just over 10,000. So as we all know, 10,000 in Croke Park it's almost a chore. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have got the game you got in Croke Park for a variety of reasons. One, Dublin are so comfortable there, and two, the atmosphere does lend to all the chaos and the sort of frenetic energy that was around the place in the last 5 and 10 minutes when Dublin looked like they were going to hunt the game down. I think that doesn't happen in Croke Park. That energy is just lost in the sheer scale of the place.
To the extent that, do you think Dublin would have won if that game was at Croke Park yesterday?
Yeah, I think so. Dublin, it's a home venue for Dublin. I don't think you can cut it any other way. Since the spring series 10 years ago, I think it's 100% a home venue for Dublin. I think they are better there than they are anywhere else. I think that is more pronounced this year than it has last year, probably because Dublin have come back to the pack.
Yeah.
They're a great team. Makes no difference what they played. I think you have to make that point. They were so far ahead of everyone else in Leinster and pretty much almost everyone else in the country that it was an irrelevance to them. But yeah, I think Dublin will regroup, and I think Dublin will be in an Ireland quarter-final at least, and there'll be a handful for whoever to get.
Well, it was suggested to me yesterday that what we should do is take the differential between Dublin and Meath the last time they played in Croke Park versus yesterday, and then extrapolate that across the last 15 years and start sort of re-administering the Leinster titles that were won over the years.
Manchester City charges.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Style. So many aspects of this game. So Dublin against the wind to start out. There was, and you only had to look to the first point, Donnchadh, to see a pattern here, which became, it did become a pattern. It became a trend. Cluxton under pressure for his kickouts in a big way. Second minute, Cluxton kick out. We're talking kind of just past the D here, and Costello puts it over the bar. Meath win possession. Fourth minute, Costello again. It was old school. It was like there were 4 players up, 2 from each side, going up, contesting a Stephen Cluxton kick out. Costello wins the break, gives it to Owen Frayne. He kicks a 2-pointer. That's another pattern, Meath and the 2-pointers. Suddenly it's 4 points to no score. And this became a big, big problem for Dublin. And interestingly, Billy Hogan, the Meath goalkeeper, said, we talked about this during the week, that Dublin and the new rules kickouts not quite working yet. It's as exposed as Dublin have ever been from the kickouts since Stephen Cluxton started playing.
I think that's a fair point, but there's a combination of things happening here. One, the wind, and two, the arc makes it a very, very limited window in where you can put your kickouts. So you can guess probably within 10 square yards, because if it's going left or right, you have a fair idea where it's going to be, and you have a split second or two to get across and get bodies there. And I think too, when you're playing against the wind, the ball hangs in such a way that it favours the attacking team.
Yeah, there was one
break it forward.
Memorable one where Con, as you watched on TV, near touchline to the TV.
Yes, Brian Menton.
He's standing under it and he's waiting forever.
Yeah. And Brian Menton just comes and times his run, and I think a score comes off that.
It does.
And I think that was one of the real signs that Dublin were under so much pressure early on, because you saw Con do that for Kula to great effect. He'd come for the kickouts when they needed him to come, and he was there like, we're under pressure here and he's going to dig this out.
With the wind, Cluxton fires that at him, but against the wind it just hangs.
Yeah, it hangs. And like, we were talking about this earlier, and people are talking about Cluxton. Like, we had a similar situation with Sean Patton last week in Clonus again, and Patton's kickouts, the trajectory of them was so good that we were asking Jim McGeeney's about it later, and like, he was absolutely on the money with them. But McGeeney's pointed out, listen, he's only one part of that, so someone has to create the picture for him, to give him the spaces to hit. The catch has to be executed, the bodies have to be around the break. So when you're talking about, was Stephen Cluxton's kick out dismantled, it's really Dublin were dismantled.
No, totally.
Dublin were on breaking ball. Like, that's the big thing. The only thing that you can do in this situation now that has been created by the new rules, where you have to go long because that's the rule, you're against the wind, so you're not going to be able to go that long. The only thing you can do to stem that flow, that blame, is to win breaking ball. And Dublin were brutal at it yesterday.
Do you think that's a desire thing?
Well, I don't know, is it a desire thing? Because like, everything can come back to coaching. I'm sure Dublin desire to win that game. You know what I mean? That'll be the Dublin team that lost to Meath.
It's funny though, because Philly McMahon was in a while back, and he doesn't like the kickouts. He thinks it's a little bit almost less sophisticated almost, that we have gone back to.
Well, Philly has an analytical sort of coaching brain, and I can understand. There's more variety if you allowed teams to get a short kick out, okay, I still think teams will push up now because they still can't go back to the keeper. Yeah. So I understand where Philly's coming from with that one. But just in the context of this game, this is the 5th time, I think, that Dublin have been down by double digits this year. It happened against Tyrone at the last day of the league. It happened against Armagh. It happened against Kerry, but they turned around. Yeah. So they have a serious problem playing into the wind. In as much as every team has been affected by this, playing into the wind with the new kick out, Dublin seem to be particularly bad at it. And it is noticeable about their play that they don't seem to use the wind in any different way to when they're playing against it. The ball goes through their hands, they run the ball, they've no sort of quick release. And they were down bodies and everything else, and they've obviously lost some big names permanently and everything. But I still think that there's more in that group of players than they showed yesterday. Their biggest problem so far as I could make out, they did not win breaking ball. And because you're trying to press out a small bit to be on the front foot when you win it, you're kind of left naked when the opposition do win it. So they haven't been great at the new rules. 2-pointers they've been a bit like the Tyrone game at the end of the league. They got almost too preoccupied with 2-pointers when they could have reeled Meath in. But still, like, you know, not to be too down and gloomy on Dublin, it wasn't a huge pile different to the Cork-Kerry game the previous week. And we were all saying afterwards, well, that's a great gut check for Kerry. I think if Dublin had come through that, had the Cormac Costello's goal gone in, we might be saying the same thing about Dublin today, but we're not.
Yeah. Closing stages, Dublin on 55 minutes are within 6 points after the Costello goal. They get back to within 5 points on 57 minutes. They get back to within 4 points. Con fists over the bar on the hour mark. They're back within 4 there with 10 minutes to go. Then Basquel with a 2-pointer. So they're back to within 2 points, 63 minutes on the clock. Odds on to win.
Yeah.
So sloppy. Like, so you know, Paul Flynn last night in Sunday games, like, look, they're not Ireland contenders if they're playing like this. Kilkenny Skies one, you know, will make the top 5 worst efforts of his career. He's just that brilliant usually. Fist passes going to ground. Was it who kicked it back over his own man?
Over Brian Howard's head.
This is why the fear factor's gone with Dublin, you know. They're just not razor sharp.
From the off, like you were saying the last 10 minutes that they were starting to make a mistake, but from the off, Dublin were doing things that is just so unlike them for the last 10 or 15 years. They were so good at the basics, they kind of squeezed the life out of everyone else because they were never going to give you a minute. So if you think of that Costello goal chance that was saved by Billy Hogan, and there was a rebound, and potentially Killian McGuinness, and apologies if I'm wrong, comes in, and in his sort of anxiety to get the ball up and manufacture the goal chance, he touches it on the ground. Dublin touched the ball on the ground from a kick out in the first half as well, like real elemental stuff that they have never done in the last 10 or 15 years. And I think that had been a feature of the play from the beginning. So when the heat was on and like you're looking at the game and you're saying like, oh, Meath are going to melt here, they're going to wither under the pressure. In some way, Dublin are actually feeling the pressure. So we actually have to finish the job here now. Dublin of 5 years ago would have been like, oh, this is bread and butter. This Dublin team, a lot of them hadn't been in this situation before. The pressure was on them because are you about to be the first team to lose to Meath in 15 years? And they made a couple of mistakes at crucial times. And when Meath started to get tired and look tired, and they got punished for a 3-up, like a really basic thing, they got punished for a 3-up offence. And you're thinking like, this is it. They're just running out of legs. And those Dublin mistakes re-energised them. And they actually kicked the last 2 points of the game into the wind, which wasn't insignificant.
Dublin mistakes?
Yeah, huge. Loads of them. They just sort of lacked direction, and they got kind of a bit sort of like the big thing about Dublin. They were always very focused as a team. You know, that line that Joe Brolly loves to regurgitate, that the Gooch used to say, the thing about the Dubs is they kind of ignore you. They're just always utterly consumed with the task. They just looked a bit kind of flustered. And I don't know whether it was the conditions, whether it was psychologically having to come back from so far down. They just look like they kind of lack leaders, but they also lack a midfield. Like, it's so obvious. Like, Brian Fenton has never been more prominent. Do you know what I mean?
Can he Chris Eubank Senior this?
Well, I don't know, but when you have Conor O'Callaghan coming out around midfield to try and kind of give Dublin a presence there and a ball-winning presence there, that's not where you want Conor O'Callaghan. It really, really isn't.
Yeah.
So I still think if Dublin get everybody back, because it's not insignificant the number of players that were out with injuries.
Yeah, Desi Farrell was. He used the word depleted.
Yeah, I'd say they're 5 or 6 down. You know,
mentioned Sean Bugler, injured during the week, Owen Murchan, Keane Murphy, Sean McMahon, Luke Bratnock, all potential starters for us. That's not going to scare Kerry Donegal overly.
Well, it will turn. It will turn them into it.
And Armagh, sorry, excuse me.
They'll turn Dublin into a serious team again if they were all there.
Okay. All Ireland winning potential team.
Well, see, it depends on. Like, I don't think nothing that Dublin have showed so far would put them, for me, in with the same bracket as Armagh, Donegal, Galway, or Kerry. And the interesting thing that came out of the weekend is that they're now knocked down to third seeds for the group stages. The draw's on Wednesday. And for the last couple of years, Dublin have got a pretty easy draw. There was 2 years ago, I think they got Kildare, Roscommon and Sligo. And you were thinking, oh God, like, you know, whereas now they're going to have to go through some seriously tricky ties to get out of their group.
Might be good for them.
That's what I mean. So I think you're going to be at a situation where you'll find out about some of these players. Are they actually up to this? And if they're not, it's not going to end well for Dublin anyway.
No. What's your final word from you, Donnchadh, on Dublin? What's your sense of them this year then?
I think they will recover. I think they are a little bit better than they showed yesterday. I think that they will be in the group stages. They'll be fine, at least the preliminary quarter final. And I think we'll see them in Croke Park. And I think they'll probably win a game in Croke Park for the year is out. So that would put them in an All-Ireland semi-final most likely.
Right.
That wouldn't surprise me in any way.
I guess, to be fair, they shouldn't be outside the top 4. So.
No.
Would you rule them out of winning the All-Ireland? Would you be so brave as to do that here?
We were having the conversation earlier, like we were talking for a while, like the most open All-Ireland in years. And I suppose from what you've seen so far, you could probably say like within that chasing pack in contention win the All-Ireland, there's probably the guys who are further on the road, the Kerry, Armagh, Galway, Donegal. And then I think there's a slight break to maybe Dublin now, who are on the basis of yesterday, because they have a lot of questions to answer. Mayo, who we could be talking about then in a different context if they turn Galway over. But there's a few then. I think that pack of 7 or 8 that we were talking about at the start of the year, it's kind of like maybe 4 and 3 now, or 4 and 4.
What about Meath then? Is this the start of something? By something I mean...
Conor rang me. I was coming back from Portlaoise, and he was on his way back from Cork, and I pointed out to him that by in about a fortnight's time we could be saying that Meath are Leinster senior football champions and back-to-back Leinster under-20 champions, because they're in the under-20 final this week. Now, Louth could be champions of both as well. I actually covered both games that Meath played against Louth and Inniskeen, the championship game last year that they won by 10 points, and the championship game, or the league game this year when promotion was on the line, that Louth won by 5 points. And Louth were comfortable in both of them, and the scoreline in both those games flattered Meath. So they've an awful lot of ground to cover in 14 days on that evidence. Louth have got a couple of players back, including Craig Lennon, who's a brilliant footballer. So they've a lot of ground to cover. Can they do it? I think they'll be emboldened by what they achieved there at the weekend. But I think if Louth won't have a better chance to win a Leinster title for having had one in a long time.
Yeah. It's great.
We won't mention 2010.
No, it's great for the Leinster Championship, though, isn't it?
It's good. We were just saying, like, the provincial football championships, and I was ready to drive an axe through the provincial championships at any stage over the last few years. But we're going to have at least 3 good provincial finals this year. Like the Connacht final this Sunday is going to be good. The Ulster final is going to be absolutely electric, and this final is going to be brilliant for all sorts of reasons. But me kind of need to win it, you know, and like not to try and take any of the kind of afterglow away from yesterday. They have different kind of rivalry with Louth than they do with Meath or with Dublin. Like traditionally they're kind of looking up at Dublin, whereas traditionally they're kind of looking down at Louth, and that rivalry has kind of spun on its head over the last couple of years. And I think it would nearly because it's great for fellas like Brian Menton and Donald Keoghan and footballers who've been around so long, and it must be so dispiriting coming up against that Dublin team. So for them to get that win is a huge thing for them. But you just kind of, I think it would be sullied a small bit if they don't go on and win the Leinster Championship, because, you know, you have to kind of stand up eventually. Eventually you have to kind of go and do the thing. And for them to beat Dublin is nearly the hard part. And now they just kind of have to live up to the billing that they've nearly given themselves. Yeah,
well, an entire generation has been downtrodden. John Heslin on the GAA Plus coverage was saying that the year he started was Dublin's first, and he retired obviously last year. So he was there for the 14 years of Dublin. So you can just imagine how dispiriting that would be. You mentioned Ulster's going to be good. So Donegal, comfortable-ish against Down in the end, 6-point win, going about their business. And then Armagh 23 points, Tyrone 22 points, and Clonus was brilliant. There was a sense the scoreboard flattered Tyrone a touch, is what people are saying. Ethan Rafferty, 96% of his kickouts successful, is a stat which jumps off the page. So Armagh had to fight back. I guess they're used to these clutch moments. Like, even I thought it was telling Soupy Campbell kicked the equaliser, but he was very close to the arc. And I just thought myself, that's a distraction. I could see how, especially these rules are new, will he try and almost hit the brakes and mess up his kicking routine? But actually, he had the experience, I suspect, on the forethought to say, let's get the equaliser. And he ran just over the line. And, it was really, it was a kind of a quality thinking, clarity of thought over the bar kind of a moment.
Even the way they worked the free to win it as well.
Yeah.
Like it was a classic plan, and it's not the most complex of moves, but they did it. Every pass went to hand. The timing of the runs was perfect.
Opposite to Dublin.
The exact opposite to Dublin. And what's really remarkable about it is that I think there are only 6 of last year's All-Ireland final team on the pitch for Armagh. So they have undergone a level of change, mostly through injury and stuff, but also because other players are coming in and showing better form. More than any All-Ireland champions of recent memory that I can remember. And they almost look like they've improved as a team. So that's kind of testament to the environment and the group and the atmosphere of it, that they can maintain those levels.
McGeeney got a yellow card, and is it a free is given straight away?
Dissent from the line.
Dissent is the same as, well, it's a similar punishment to the dissent on the pitch.
Yeah, to be honest, I think there was a degree of...
I think he realised that it cost my team
I've just let the team down.
Yeah,
Can you imagine, actually... the embarrassment. A bit like we're going to talk later on about Darren McCarthy. You'd be, brave to butt a hurl into anybody going forward for
that's the first.
A manager's going to be brave to now shout something, and the you've been on at your team all year saying, lads, discipline, and now they turn to the sideline and say,
but that's
just cost us.
It isn't remarkable, and I've seen this at club level. I'm involved with our reserve team at home, just helping out. But it is remarkable about how the dissent thing has almost disappeared overnight.
Even at club level, it's quieting down.
Oh, well, like, as I say, I'm involved with them, and if they give away a penalty that brings it all the way on a score, like, you're giving them a bollocking yourself.
Have you seen it enforced?
Yeah, I've seen it enforced. I've seen stuff on the line enforced, and it's like, it's one of those things. You say to them, any of them in a dressing room, this is one of the things you can control.
Yeah.
So get a hold of it, like.
Because it completely undercuts you as a manager if you're giving away frees.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it at inter-county level because it was one of the things that was brought in. I remember when the day that they unveiled all these proposals, some of them are gone, some of them are still in there. And that line about dissent from anybody on the line, like a team official or whatever way they had worded it, and it stood out a mile, and you're thinking, my first thought was like, Jesus, it'd be a hard sell to bring this into hurling, like when you continue. But football managers generally tend to be quite vocal, and some of it is just like natural reaction and expressive, and they're not really having to go to the referee. But clearly, it's gotten to the stage where, like, put it this way, Kieran McGeeney's not going to do that again.
Well, my first thought when I saw that rule was akin to, we're clamping down on fist passing in the league. By round 2, that would be.
Yeah.
No, this isn't one of these rules we're following anymore. I just didn't see this being enforced. And when it happens to a manager of McGeeney's profile in what is a very tight game, it's a huge swing. Yeah. It's quite impressive that they followed through.
It's nearly putting up to the referees too, because the FRC can only propose the rule. It was interesting to see that the FRC briefing that came out last week spoke about the steps rule. And basically they were saying, look, we can't do any more other than, like, it's up to the referees to say any more than 4 steps, you have to give it free. And then referees were more conscious of that. Yeah. But it's like, we've gotten to the stage where I know it's hard to referee, and particularly I'm sure it's hard to referee these new rules when people are still trying to figure out whether you're actually going to do it. But it's like, if you're a referee now and you don't want people roaring and shouting at you, invoke the rules.
We had an incident actually where at one stage the referee cleared the bench and just made sure it was only subs, and and whoever was involved with running the team. So he cleared the bench. So a lot of our lads were out the other side of the fence, and sure, he gave a decision or something, and they were shouting in at him. And the referee looked over, presumed it was either me or the other guy who's involved with the team, and gave the free. So now it turned out it didn't really matter, but like, you know, it's one of those instances where things can be wrongly interpreted.
Sure.
But it goes to show the appetite is there from referees too. And
so if you really want to start playing chess, when a free is given against your team, I need to figure that in my head. Anyway, impersonate the other manager.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Put on an accent. Yeah.
You could hire Conor sketches or something.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. And a yellow is a step further. It's not an automatic yellow. So McGeeney must have said something significant to get.
Yeah, like there wasn't even any confirmation it was McGeeney. Just the camera went to him, and it just seemed to be, and he was standing there quite stoic. And yeah, but and I think whoever was in commentary sort of maybe suggested it was, but yeah, there was no further explanation. I didn't see.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm doing the man a disservice. It might not.
No, I think he confirmed it in his interview after the match.
Okay, well then it was him then. Listen, hurling people need to have their time here. Is there anything else you want to say about the weekend? The new rules are I think we're saying this is cautiously going very, very well.
Football is so sexy right now.
Isn't it though?
Yeah, football has been remarkable. If you go back to even the Meath Dublin game last year, like that was a procession. And I like an awful lot of it was the rules, but part of it is the fact that, you know, Meath didn't wilt when at the sight of the Dublin jersey. And, you know, part of what has happened over the last 10 or 15 years has been Dublin is so superior, but part of it has been Meath just sort of downtrodden by it. And you could say the same about Cork in their game. They raised the gallop and brought the game to extra time. So, but definitely the rules have been almost an unqualified success. You could argue the toss over little bits here and there, but in general the game is much better than it was.
Great, thank God. Conor is staying with us. He was at Portlaoise yesterday. Donnchadh, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.